talk now to royal photographer Ian Pelham-Turner, who's in our central London studio for us now. Ian Pelham-Turner, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Are you surprised by the strength of feeling about this issue from the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge?
I think in reality they should be going even further. I think the most stringent methods should always be on what I consider the biggest blight in media, paparazzi photography. You know, I'm lucky that I've been in photography 50 years now, and during those 50 years I saw newspapers, Fleet Street newspapers, before paparazzi, so I know the value of newspapers as well. And my feeling at the moment is that the same laws that have been brought in for drug dealers should be brought in for paparazzi photographers. You know, if they're caught doing something within a certain area, they should lose their cameras, they should be fined. On a second attempt, they should go to a prison sentence. It's the only way to stop paparazzi is to actually physically hit them in the pocket.
And yet, if they're taking photographs from public places, where does the law stand?
I think the law stands at the moment that what we've got to remember is that they're taking photographs in what could be considered, they wouldn't know, but as I know, there are security issues involved constantly. They could be sort of taking photographs of people that would be very, very useful to the types of people that that are fighting against this country, and to actually sort of be able to do this is a travesty. You know, I think William and Kate recognised the fact that there should be more control. I don't mind that because I feel that they've actually really given a tremendous amount of support to newspapers and photographs anyway. And to allow these people to continue, I think will actually cause all sorts of problems.
Well, yes, and they point out it's not just a matter of privacy, and that's important to them. They want to make sure that their children have as ordinary a life as they possibly can while they're still children. But they're clearly concerned about security risks. Do you think they're right to be worried?
They're absolutely right, because the types of people who surround the children when they're out are security people in the main. You know, to be photographed, to actually sort of be seen as part of this, it could cause all sorts of issues. And I think, you know, the reality is, as I say, the most stringent methods must actually be introduced in Britain to actually stop this.
Does it surprise you, some of the tactics that they've talked about having been used? People in cars with darkened windows, also putting sheets up to kind of establish some kind of a hide so that they can take photographs unseen, and using children as well to try and lure Prince George into shot, if you like, so they can take a picture of him. Do those kind of tactics surprise you at all?
They don't. I mean, as I say, I remember the days before paparazzi first came in. There's this myth that paparazzi was all about exposing the truth. The reality was paparazzi photographers were brought into Britain to fill up pages in a cheap fashion for newspapers. It was much more cost-effective for newspapers to fill up their pages with that rather than positive editorial. You know, and I suffered that myself as well, because I saw the transience from being a regular sort of photographer and then watching how paparazzi photography came into Britain. So when they sort of do these types of things, you know, whether they are they're only doing it for money. So, as I say, you know, the only way I think to actually stop this is to have really stringent laws in Britain that would really hit these people in the pocket to ensure that they don't go over the line.
And praise from Kensington Palace for the British media for not publishing any of these photographs.
Absolutely right, and I think, you know, they never will, because we respect the best royal family in the world by far. I'm terribly proud to be part of this sort of situation with Helena Sharp, my business partner as well. And so, you know, we feel that today you've got to take a stand. William and Kate are very, very right in taking a stand, and I'm very passionate about the fact that the reality is stringent laws have got to be brought in, because this will continue.
Okay, Ian Pelham-Turner, royal photographer, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. You're watching Sky News?
I think, you know, what's been happening now is that other children are being used to actually pull George into a sort of a playground sort of situation. They haven't been suspecting it at all. But what it's done now is it's put the palace even more on edge. And the reality is that William and Kate have been very good at actually creating opportunities for photographers. Hence the christening. Everybody was allowed to take photographs. There was a perfect situation for this to happen. So now, when you start seeing pictures of George and he's been enticed by other children, it's not only putting George and Charlotte at risk, it's also putting those children at risk as well. I think the statement is absolutely correct. In fact, I don't think we're going far enough. I think the reality is that paparazzi photography, I've known it for over 50 years now, it's been an absolute blight on British media. These days, I feel that the same draconian laws that are invoked for drug dealers should be invoked for paparazzi photographers as well. So in their first instance, if they're caught within a secure location, they should have their cameras taken away and they should be fined, heavily fined. This is not anything to do with freedom of the press. This is all to do with actually creating a situation where the security of those children are highly involved in the first place. You've got to be so careful.
Photographer Ian Pelham-Turner. Ian, can we say this is the toughest warning of this type we've ever had from the Royals?
I think so. I think the reality nowadays is that there's more encroachment constantly. There's a lot of implications behind this whole sort of letter as well. It's not just purely privacy, there's security issues and all sorts of other issues as well that are involved in this at the same time. So I think it's time that William and Kate took a stand. I think it's time that the government took a stand as well.
I mean, we hear about the sort of things that some paparazzi have been trying, like literally using children as bait to kind of tempt George over and hiding out in a car for a day and, secretly being concealed in there to try and get shots. I mean, is that something, you're a royal photographer, is that something you've ever done? Have you ever gone anywhere near that?
I mean, the reality with my business partner, Helen Ashard, we always have respected the royal family. We have one of the greatest royal families in the world. All the times that I've ever worked with the royal family have always been with their permission and their understanding at the same time. So I've worked behind the scenes as well as sort of public occasions at the same time. when I look at what's happening at the moment, all these guidelines, all these red lines are being crossed totally, and it has to stop, I think.
I mean, you mentioned security earlier. The Met Police have issued a statement today where they absolutely agree with the line taken from Kensington Palace. I mean, do you think that they have a real point there?
I think they have more than a point. The reality is security is stretched to the limit. The implications, basically what these photographers are giving are almost like a guideline of how to capture George, Charlotte or Kate. Because when they're taken, these photographs, they're 30, 40 feet away. So they're getting a general scene. So they're catching security people and other people in there as well. It's a very serious subject.
Okay, but the fact is, the royal family are part of national life. Prince George will be head of state one day. Yeah. Don't the royal family have to accept there is an enormous interest, and therefore people want to see pictures of the royal family, even of the youngsters? Don't they have to accept?
I think they accept it, and they do. I mean, if you look at the occasions of the christening, everybody was given ample opportunity to get all the photographs that were necessary. Basically, what's happening now, it's almost like a handbook for any terrorist organisation to look at and actually sort of work with, because they can see that if a photographer can do it, so can they.
But maybe the royal family should be offering a few more of these opportunities, these controlled opportunities, because there is such an appetite out there.
I think, yes, and I would agree with that. I think that the part of the way that is happening at the moment is that glamour photographers, the Mario Testinos of this world, are being given all the opportunities. And I think that may be causing part of an issue, for British newspapers as well.
With other people wanting to get in there and say, why don't I get a chance?
Absolutely, yeah. I did William's first ever Christmas baby shots. I was the youngest photographer ever to work with the royal family in that particular vein. It really uplifted my career totally. And now, we are always sort of saying to Buckingham Palace and the royal family that young photographers, young British photographers, should be given that opportunity at the same time. And I think, yes, there should be more photo calls. But the reality is that when I sort of think back to the days of how many official photo calls were done for Prince William, probably 4 or 5 in the whole of his lifetime before he got married. So there's always been this stand.
Finally, the all-important question, is this letter going to make any difference at all to the way people behave?
I think the only way to stop these people, to stop these photographers, to hit them in the pocket. So personally, I would get the government to bring in new laws that actually state, if they're caught doing it, their cameras are confiscated and they are fined heavily. That's what I really personally think.
Well, that's a whole other question, new laws. Okay, Ian Pelham-Turner, thank you very much indeed.